Welcome to episode 8 of the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffmann, and Eric Johnson. Today's episode, Panning for Gold. We're going to be talking all things prospecting and how to generate the clients in the business for your real estate business. So stay tuned, keep with us here on the Business of Real Estate podcast. Okay, welcome back. Episode 8, Panning for Gold. So Lynn, we're talking all things prospecting here. And I think, I know in the coaching I've been doing with agents over the last year, it's amazing how many agents confuse marketing with prospecting.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. So for you, what do you think? What is your idea for prospecting or your definition?
Well, did a little research on that as well, just to make sure I was on the same page as what I have always thought. But prospecting is the process of finding and adding new people, meeting new people, and then turning them into leads that will generate business for your business and generate a name on your database that you can follow up with and stay in contact with. So that's just my basic definition. Yep. You're out there panning, looking for new people to add to your names.
I think that's key when you said new names, right? Because it's always interesting for me when I either see agents that just want to go to the usual suspects continuously. Some of them want to ignore them and just go after brand new ones, strangers. That we know that in our database should be the people that know, like, and trust us. Right. But it's amazing to me how many people really just say, hey, Eric, what lead generation source? Like, I'm looking to pay for leads. And go, but are you working your database? Like, that's where you should start first. Yeah,
I think that's where the money is. That's where the gold is, as we're talking about. So what you sort of described there was a little bit of a transactional person. And then you can also be too relational and just rely on your referral base. But you've always got to be adding people to that base of referral people. So constantly looking for fresh water to go into the system so you can make new connections. Because as things happen, people change, they move out of state, out of town, province, whatever. And so you've always got to be generating new people to add to that list of people. So yes, prospecting is that search for those people to add. And that doesn't mean you're giving up your database or your relationship base, and it doesn't turn you into a transactional person. It just means you're constantly replenishing your people.
For sure. And I think, one of the key things you need to make sure of is that when you are prospecting, even especially to your database, is you're not always selling. It's not about selling to them. It's about building the relationships. And I think that's, you see it a lot in websites. I see it a lot in social media for agents. It's all, hey, for sale, just listed, coming soon, open house, closed. Like, this is like screaming, buy a house from me. And prospecting is more than, because not everybody's ready to buy today or next week, right? They may want to do a deal 5 years from now, 2 years from now. So prospecting, like you said, is getting the contacts, and then from there we have to build the relationships with them, correct?
Right.
So what are some of the things that you used in your business to prospect? So what were you big on?
Well, there's always, you can go back to traditional methods, which I tend to like as well. So traditional methods, but nowadays we add a lot of digital technology to that and a lot of, lead generation type of purchasing that you can add to it. But I'll talk a little bit more about traditional methods, and that could be farming an area that you think is reflects you and your lifestyle. If you've grown up in a certain area or had experience in a certain area, that might be the perfect place to prospect and do a farming method. I always believe open housing is a great way to do things as well. Whether they were virtual, now they're in person. Doing open houses is a great way to meet new people. And there's always your traditional pop buys and client activity events. So you add all those things together. But you can find prospects walking your dog in the dog park. You can find prospects walking your children to school. you're going to find prospects everywhere. I wouldn't pigeonhole myself into one particular avenue. It's about talking to people all the time and listening for a need and hearing what their need is, building the relationship, and they become a client for life. But just remember, not everybody is going to buy a house. Some people actually stay in their homes 20, 30 years, but they may still be a great source of referral and help you with your prospecting through talking to other people themselves.
For sure. And I think, there's some other ones, I'll get into that, but also I want to make sure that people don't get, or agents don't get pigeonholed, like you said, is always looking for the clients. You can also prospect for some of the professional contacts. So prospecting for different mortgage brokers, for some of these other trades, people that can refer business to you. Because that's really, a lot of people want to do that business by referral. And simply because it is low cost and it's just built on relationships. And if we build the loyalty, then, we've got that ongoing perpetual business. But I want to go back to, some of the prospecting, because I know it's always amazing to me when I bring up the idea of door knocking or cold calling. How many agents do you hear, I'll never do door knocking? And then you see them. It's funny, I had a client once that said, I saw them on social media posting about how they had an amazing time door knocking. And then, we started working together a year later. And they said, I can never do door knocking. But I saw you. I said, well, no, I had a reason for going out. And I think that's the thing, is that if they have a purpose and a reason for doing it, they can do it. Now, not everybody's comfortable. Sometimes it's not safe for one person to be out alone. Perhaps it's going out in a team, you get that support. Cold calling is another way. I've seen a lot of agents, some agents swear by door knocking, some swear by cold calling, but it is important. We want to point out, do not call lists, especially here in Canada. You need to abide by the do not call list, or you can get in big trouble, big fines. I know you've worked with a lot of agents too. When you're talking to them about cold calling or door knocking?
Well, pretty much most of the people that I talk to are call adverse, any kind of outgoing call adverse. So that's a problem. So asking them to go to a stranger's door and knock on the door and just go, do you want to sell your house, is also a very uncomfortable process. So really the way around that is just what you said. It's to do either a door knock or a phone call with a purpose, with something you actually want to say, and maybe even better, something that you're giving away or doing for someone. A door knocking can be simply dropping off some stats for the neighborhood. I mean, the more you give to people with no expectation of receiving, the greater your chances are of getting something back. You're getting yourself out there, you're being part of the neighborhood or your community. There's lots of great things you can pop by with just a small tokenism to start the conversation, right? And if you're already walking the neighborhood with a dog or kids or whatever, my first transaction came from walking my dog Jackson in Oakville, and I would walk him around, and I met another lady that was walking a big German Shepherd, and we would meet up pretty much every night at some point and walking. She didn't know I was brand new into real estate. She didn't know anything really about me other than what we'd talked and built up a friendship. And she asked me to help her son purchase a home. She didn't know until years later that was my first transaction. So, like I said, everywhere and everybody, one thing at a time. But be sure to want to give something in return if you're doing the calls or the door knocking.
For sure, because when you make it all about yourself, nobody wants to pay attention.
Nobody's interested in all about yourself. You have to express how you're interested in them and what you might do or your brokerage could do for them, and how you're also the area expertise, have the expertise in the area, and you know what's going on. Everybody wants to know about real estate. If you're standing in a grocery line and you're wearing a nice Remax pin like Eric is today, somebody might just turn to you and ask, how's the market? Well, there you go. You're prospecting now. You're searching for new people to add to your database.
For sure. And I think, when it goes back to marketing. For me, it goes back to my marketing philosophy is that I need to talk about people's needs, wants, and how I help solve their problems. That's how I get people to pay attention at the beginning. So if I show up at somebody's door or I call them and I say, hey, are you thinking about selling your home? That's all about me, to be honest, as opposed to I'm just out giving people some information about what's happening in this neighborhood, what's happening to the biggest investment of your life, which is your home. And so I'm out looking to give away this information for free. Okay, you got my attention. Now I can talk a little bit further. I think another form of prospecting is, and I know we have in 2 more episodes, we're going to be talking about networking, but networking is a huge piece. And so whether you join a network group, you form your own network group, perhaps it's a community organization. There's some great people that are involved in these organizations. See, they like to help. And so the idea, like even in a networking organization or in a group, you want to go in looking to help the others first, grow their business. Then in turn, they'll want to help you. And it's called the law of reciprocity. So, join us in a couple of episodes. We'll be talking a little bit more about that. But there's a lot of different ways you can prospect, Lynn. And I think, one of the other key things is, so it's not just about putting people in the database, but we got to make sure we follow up. My God.
It's funny you said that because I wrote that on my notepad. Follow up. So many missed opportunities. You've met with all these people. You've expanded your database. You've expanded your sphere of people, and you don't follow up. And I don't know why. Because those people actually like you, and they would love to see you again and keep in contact with you. So follow-up is really important, and I know you're very big on follow-up and have a lot of great systems for follow-up. So I won't hijack that aspect of it, but follow-up and consistently follow-up. You've got to keep doing this. Consistency is, I said before in one of the other podcasts, consistency is the biggest secret of all. You guys are always looking for the quick bullet and the quick secret. Follow-up and consistency. Do those 2 things all the time, and you'll just be fine.
Huge. Consistency is the key, right? Because that's
everything.
That's what takes an average agent to being a really good agent, is being consistent in all aspects of the business. And the other thing we want to talk about, and we will have another episode where we talk more in depth on CRMs, but a CRM, customer relationship management software, is one of the keys to making sure that you are consistent. The simple fact of collecting names, and the number of agents I've talked to said, where's your database? And A, they don't know how many people they have in their database. B, they don't know, all the information about them. They are struck all over the place. They're in their phone. They're on the Matrix software, the real estate software that we use, because they have them set up getting automatic emails. They have set up on a spreadsheet. It's in a notebook. It's like everywhere. I go, okay, pool all of those 5, 6 different ways you have of storing stuff, and let's put them into one cohesive unit. And the nice thing about the software is it gives you that consistency, because it'll remind you, assuming you're using it properly. If I'm scheduling calls, and I think the other thing, consistency means every single day, doesn't it, Lynn?
Yeah, I think one of the things I try to get agents to do is 2 hours of lead generation a day, 2 hours of prospecting a day. If you can only get an hour in, that's better than nothing. So if you only get an hour in, don't think, you've still won the day because you got an hour, but shoot for 2 hours a day. I was interviewing an agent that was talking about coming over to our brokerage, and I kept saying to him, can you meet me at 9:30? Can you meet me at 10 o'clock? He goes, nope, I can't. Can you meet me at this time? Nope, I can't. And finally I said to him, so what are you doing at that time period? And he said, that's when I do my calls. And I went, I like you already. He was very consistent. He was pushing me off because it was interfering with his lead gen time. And he's very regimented on his time. And that's when he follows up and does his calls. Now you said one thing, and it was the one thing, and I just wrote down, do one thing and be good at it. Do one thing and get really good at it before you go adding another thing to it.
Yes.
And stay consistent. So if open houses are your shtick, if that's what you do well with, then do open houses. and be really good at it. If knocking on doors and taking people a little something and talking to them about the neighborhood, if that's it, then do that. But get good at something before you jump ship and go do something else, because that's where sometimes when you, like even you go to the gym, you're almost getting to your goal and then you give up before you get to it.
Yep.
Just before you get there, you've given up and you go start something else. Don't do that. Stay and focused and stay good at it and then move on.
Yep. And I'm
Add on, I should say. Not move on, but add on to
Yes.
that.
So I know typically when I'm talking to a new agent, we'll pick 2 to 3 forms of lead generation just because, open houses, it's typically done on a weekend. So I want you doing something during the week. But like you said, I want you to get really good at it before we add on to it because you want to be consistent. And I think, if you are a new agent and you're looking, as I said, typically I'm suggesting 2 to 3, and it's like building that foundation. Here's my foundation. So, comparing it to building a house, I need to have a good solid foundation before I can build the first story and the second story on top. So I want to make sure I have that good foundation of here's my multiple streams. And one of the reasons why I recommend having multiple streams of prospecting is I know when COVID hit, and all of a sudden we were not allowed to do open houses. And I talked to a few agents, they only had one way to prospect, and that was open houses. And they said that was taken away from me. And then they had, there was agents having amazing years. Like the market did take off there. And there were some people sitting there going, it's not happening for me, simply because they lost their form of prospecting.
There's another reason they lost it.
Well, no,
if I can interject.
Yeah.
It's called pivoting.
Yes.
And I think COVID and the change that was so dramatically imposed on all of us, if you couldn't pivot quick, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
So no matter the time, you need to be able to pivot.
Well, exactly. And that's where having multiple streams of prospecting helps, because that allows you to pivot. But if I haven't built up a system and all I had was one way to do it, the unfortunate thing is if you lose that opportunity, if for some reason all of a sudden you can't go door knocking all of a sudden, injury, whatever, now what? Okay, so having those multiple ways and then looking at it and going, okay, geofarming, we're talking sort of in general terms, but we'll go a little in depth on some of these. Geofarming is really a long-term game. It's a long game. I usually say it's about 18 months to 2 years to really get going in a farm, because you have to be consistent. You have to be out there. And then, so if that's long-term, then I look at some other stuff. Well, open houses, obviously, we're looking for the immediate, like short-term, because we're hoping these are all active buyers looking to buy and sell. So it's really a good mix, right? It's finding that mix of, and I want to use the word sales funnel, because I remember my training in sales talking about the funnel is shaped a certain way, because I don't want to put 100 people in and have 100 people fall out, because I can't handle that many. But I do need to do deals, like in sales, I need to make a sale a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. So it's okay if some of those people stay in and I nurture, they will fall out at the right time, right?
That's right. So again, we talked about this a little bit in one of the other podcasts if you didn't hear it, but there's the farming and there's the hunting. So the farming is where you're planting seeds, and that can take, like Eric just said, a couple of years. It can take longer than that. Planting seeds, doing lots of great things for people. But then there's the hunting, because you do need to eat and you need to get clients and you need transactions immediately. So you've got to do both. And while you're doing that, you're filling the pipeline. So that is super important, that pipeline or funnel, whatever you want to call it, that there's always people in that at various different stages and various different spots. And your job is to stay in touch with them all, know where they're at in that pipeline or funnel. And so you consistently, instead of having the peaks and the valleys in your business, you've got a nice consistent or a more consistent income lead generation coming along your way. Huge. Pipelines are very important.
Huge. And what comes with that is the tracking aspect. You need to be tracking everything you do, right? It is, that prospecting piece is, as I go out and I have conversations and I learn little nuggets about that person, I have to have somewhere where I put that stuff in. Right. and I track, how many calls did I make today? One of the programs that we've run here at Remax Niagara and Remax Escarpment is we're working with Workman Success Systems, and they had this great daily tracking, the DSA Daily Success Habits. And so basically we were tracking ourselves on a daily basis. How many calls did you make? How many appointments did you set? You got points. We gamified it. And so if you're struggling to prospect, making a game out of it and saying, hey, if I get this number of points, and actually I had one person in one of my classes take this on, Daily Success Tracker, and she was like, you had to get so many points a day. She got to the point, she goes, I can't do anything else until I hit these points. She taught her family, her kids knew that they couldn't do anything, go have fun, until mommy got those points. And you know what? She went from nothing to having like so many listings within a month and a half, simply because she applied two things, the daily tracker, and at the beginning you're not getting the points, but it was tracking the success. And that's the key, is that, when you are out there prospecting, you want to keep track. How many calls did I make? As Lynn said, she says 2 hours. I say anywhere from 90 minutes to 3 hours of prospecting, depending on your level of expertise, the number of referral business you're doing. It varies, but you do got to track, Lynn.
You have to track. Without tracking, you don't know what you've done. You track everything. We've talked about this in business and expenses as well as prospecting. But all of this does come down to a numbers game. It is all about numbers, and you can do the math. It's quite simple. If you figure out how many phone calls you have to make to gain X number of listing appointments or buyer appointments, then out of those, how many do you convert when you go to that appointment? It's all about numbers. So you do need to have a baseline for numbers that you want to contact and stay with that. So that was one thing I just took away from that. The numbers don't lie, and they do, it does work. I mean, this is, it just works. There's no shortcut around it. You do the numbers and things will work its way through.
Huge. And it's funny, when you said numbers, I flashed back. I remember this, there's this sales manager talking about wanting to make sure that his team members did X number of calls per day. And I said, is it really that you want to track, like you want to encourage, you have to make this number of calls, or is it all about the number of appointments?
That's right.
Because, and this is the one thing I want to make sure you guys, really pay attention to. Because see, I can go knock on doors and I can make phone calls, but if I don't put enthusiasm into it, if I don't have a basic script to go off of, and I just go up there and I'm winging it, and I'm not going to see a lot of success. You might get lucky once in a while. And then, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We all need some luck. But the simple fact is that, what is our purpose? And I always say to people, what's your purpose when you go out door knocking? What's your goal? Is your goal to get a name and a number? Is it, initially maybe that's it. I'm just looking to get a name, a piece of contact information, so that I can start the process of building that relationship. So when you are prospecting, ultimately it is about having a conversation and landing an appointment. Because, as I always say, Lynn, I've yet to hear, and maybe you've heard this, but I've yet to hear somebody who said, hey, I sent out a postcard and I got a call, the person saying, come put your sign in my lawn. We don't even need to meet. I've never heard of that.
No.
So you have to have that conversation and have an appointment.
There has to be an appointment, be it with a buyer or a seller. There should be an appointment. And that should be the goal of the phone calls and all the other stuff, is to actually book an appointment to go see people and show them what you do. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I was thinking of something there and it's completely slipped out of my mind, but I'll come back to it in a second.
Come back to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the idea is just, as I said, having those conversations. And what's interesting to me is that when people have somebody they've known for a long time, but they're afraid to have a conversation because it's been too long. And so I've always, one thing I started teaching was the apology script. And talking, this short, simplified version is I call somebody up and say, hey, I just wanted to give you a call and touch base. When we were working together, really appreciated the relationship we had built up. We were talking almost every day. we got to the closing and you got busy, you know, moving and getting the new house ready. I got a little bit busy and we fell out of touch. And to be honest, I wanted to call you back, but I actually felt embarrassed. So today I said, screw that, screw the ego. I apologize. I apologize for not keeping in touch. And usually what happens is you shut up at that point. And usually what happens is they start apologizing back because they never kept in touch. And now you've reestablished that relationship. And that's what it is. It's that relationship. We need to keep in touch. So when you're prospecting, it's not, okay, I got a name, get it and forget it. You got to keep up.
Yeah.
Right?
I use a similar letter called a confession letter and encourage people to go back and confess that they haven't stayed in touch. And I also, when I'm teaching some of my classes, I run a video that Whitney Houston sings the song, and it's Christian the Lion. And it's a story about the young men that rescued Christian the Lion from Herod's in England. And they had to give him up eventually, but they went back to visit him when he was on a African reserve. And the welcome that they got from this lion it makes you cry. I've watched it millions of times and it makes you cry. And at the bottom, the bottom video, some words come across and it says, stay in touch, reach out, somebody loves you. And I think that the agent, are the gift to these people. And you forget that you're a gift. You've touched their lives. You've done something meaningful for them. You've stayed in touch. You've done all these things. And then all of a sudden, you drop off. And they're happy to see you. So don't ever be afraid to go back. And the other thing I hear agents say is, well, the market changed. And this happened and that happened. They're not going to be happy to see me. Look, you don't own that stuff. That's not your cross to bear. That's the market. You don't have to feel that, maybe the plumbing was a little wonky or the roof was a little wonky. They're not looking at you and holding you responsible. They just want to talk to you. Yep. And so if you can get past those things in your own head and realize that you're the gift, people want to stay in touch with you. And then the big trick is to put those people to work for you, helping you find new people to work with. Because when you build those relationships, they want to help you. And then they become your advocates or super fans or whatever the heck you want to call them, A-plus clients, whatever, and they'll go to work helping you find new business. That's where I feel client appreciation programs are really, really important, because when you're appreciating your clients, they're looking for ways to help you. I was at an agent's client appreciation on Friday night, and it works that way. When you go to something like that, you want to help those people.
Yeah.
So put those events on and put your people to work for you.
And so I'm going to take it back a little bit, a bit of a step here, and look at if you're looking to build a prospecting system. So one of the things, I have a simple one-sheet business plan based off of Strategizer's, what do they call it? The business canvas model, and business model canvas, sorry. And one of the things we focus on is customer segments. So when you're looking at prospecting, you can try and be everything to everybody, but you're gonna struggle because you can't be everything to everybody. And so it's easier to find, that you connect well with certain types of people. And if you look at your social media, you're gonna have, when you look at, say, Facebook or Instagram, you go, who are you connected to? Well, family, so I have a good, strong connection there. People I've worked with, people I've played sports with, been in community organizations with. But I say to people, when we look at our customer segments, I want them to identify, and it could be based on geography, life situations, economy, income that they have. So meaning that you could have, the seniors looking to downsize. Somebody says, hey, I want to focus on new, first-time home buyers. I want to focus on small families. Someone might say, like Lynn was some with the geofarming, I'm going to focus on a specific geographic area. Maybe you're going to go after people that love condos. I knew somebody called themselves, she was the condo queen in Kitchener-Waterloo. And that was her focus. That's how she prospected, was focusing on becoming an expert in condos. And I know we're going to be talking about niche in a couple more episodes, but it is still, that is how you can quickly identify the types of people. So if you're a new agent and you're going, well, Like, where do I go? Where do I start? Figure out who you want to work with. Figure out your ideal client. Now I can look and say, hey, the next step is we look at their needs and wants and what problems they face. So I want to be, again, it's about them. I want to talk about their needs and wants. I want to develop those connections, those relationships. And then from there, what I can do is now I figure out where they get their information. So bringing this back into prospecting is once I've identified the customer segment I want to go after, I understand their needs or wants. Now when I prospect, now I figure out, okay, where do they get their information? And, Lynn, I know we have a top agent in Niagara, lives in Niagara on the Lake. He's done quite a bit of luxury. And I remember him talking to me about how he was surrounded by all these people were retired, top executives, lots of money, lots of wealth. They retired, and what do they do with their day? Well, they go down to the local coffee shop and they read the local paper, not the regional paper, the local paper.
Yeah.
He goes, everybody says newspaper's dead. Well, I put in a half-page ad. I'm getting home evaluations out the wazoo. But he found out where they got their information. And I think that's key, is that when if you're looking at a high-level executive, they're not spending their day on Facebook. So they're elsewhere. So if you're trying to prospect to those people, just relying on Facebook doesn't work. So you got to find where they get their information and what do they want, because what that person wants versus what that first-time homebuyer, they want different things. They need different things. So to your point of pivoting, it's kind of pivoting between the customer segments I'm going after.
Yeah, and I think I'm just going to take it back a little bit on that. I think before you know who you're going to go after or where you're going to prospect, I think you also need to know who you are as a person. I had one gal who was wanting to do farming in the orchards in Burlington. She grew up in Southeast Oakville. She had Louis Vuitton purses. She had Hermes purses. She did not belong in the orchards. She had nothing to relate to with those people in that area, but she spent $50,000, $60,000 marketing in that area, and this is a long, long time ago. And she was targeting the wrong people. She wasn't targeting people that were relatable to her. So I think we've talked about this a little bit before. You are who you are, whether you're a sports enthusiast, whether you're a cross-country cyclist, whether you're a horse enthusiast, a gymnast, whatever you are going to attract like. You are going to attract a lot of like. So be authentic. Look for those tribes and groups of people that you can relate to very well. And when you do your advertising in whatever your method of it is, and I'm going to do a little shameless plug here for our stuff, I'm going to mention Real Intro. When you're building your bio in Real Intro, please tell us who you are, what you like, what you do. You will attract those people as well. So that will help you with your prospecting, because those people will be attracted to you because you have similar likes and dislikes.
I agree. And I think the other thing is making sure that when you do initially get that contact and you're out there prospecting, you connect well with somebody, focus on building the relationship. And I want to use, there's a term that I was part of a networking organization called BNI. It's a worldwide organization. And one of the things we talked a lot about was so many people have a database that is a mile wide, but it's only an inch deep. And so the goal was to make it a mile deep, because when we go deep, people begin to not only know and like us, but trust us. And that's when you get the business. And I don't care what business you're in. This doesn't apply just to real estate, it applies to every business, is that when I build those relationships. So when I go out there and I prospect and I'm focusing more on the other person, and again, their needs and their wants and how I can help them solve any problems, I start building that trust, I start building that depth. And that's what allows me to keep those people in my funnel, if you will, and continue to nurture them and provide what they need and what they want. And I think that's one of the keys. If you're out there and you're saying, look, I'm struggling with my prospecting, have another realtor listen to you. Like, pitch to them. So, if you're on a team, this is great. I think role playing is key. It's something I do in a lot of my courses, is we'll do some role playing, because I want you to practice getting that stuff out. because there's a number of people, and I've had
I
experience.
can't believe you're using the practice word.
Oh,
We are the only industry that doesn't practice
Yep.
before they go out and pitch for millions of dollars worth of property. I mean, we do not practice. There's another aversion too: phone calls and practicing.
yeah.
Practice on somebody else, the family, the dog, the mirror, whatever, before you go live.
Because where are they? Who are they practicing on?
On live, on the client.
On
live.
the client.
Right.
We say practice on us, not on your clients.
Well, they do. They practice on the client. 20 minutes before, they'll call me up. Do you have a luxury listing presentation? When are you presenting? Oh, today at 5. Well, you're screwed. That's not going to work. You know, you got to practice, guys.
Yes.
I can't believe you said that. That was a good word.
Well, that's the key, right? It's like the number. It's funny because I've seen experienced agents where all of a sudden it's like, okay, tell me what you say when you go door knocking, and they're like you've been in the business how long, and you don't already have sort of that script, and they don't, and because they just wing it every time. And so it's important that you do practice, that you do, as I say, get another realtor, find somebody you can partner with, get a buddy, and then what you do is you role play with each other and get some good, honest feedback. And I'm going to tell you that if you are practicing with somebody and you're doing that role playing, I remember, Lynn, like when I first started my sales training, it was like, you typically had two types of people that did the role play with you. You had the lay down who just said yes and let's buy whatever because I want to make it easy for you. Or you're going to be the real dick and just grind them for everything and not give anything up. And it's like, be realistic. Put yourselves, and I think it's key is also we talked very first in our introductory episode, we talked about mindset. And it's putting yourself in the mindset of the customer. So when you're helping somebody role play, think about what would I like? What would I want to know? And I think that's key is when you put yourself in the client's shoes and you go, what are they going to want to know? Right? And I think what ends up happening is what a lot of agents talk themselves out of is they put themselves too much into the mindset and say, well, I don't want to be interrupted during my day. No, you don't want to be interrupted with garbage, with nonsense, with nothing. You interrupted me to say, hi, would you like to buy your house, sell your house? No.
That's a closed question.
Exactly.
There's the problem. That's a closed question.
Yeah.
You never ask a closed question.
Exactly. But we've got to show value. And to your point was knowing yourself, what's my value proposition? What do I bring to the table?
And knowledge is power. I've had agents say to me before, what's so-and-so doing? Why do they do so well? They practice. They're very skilled at what they say. They know when to be quiet and when to talk. They know how to ask the right questions. Watch a really good journalist ask questions. They ask questions, the same questions, 7 ways until they get the answer that they need. And that's about going deep in the conversation. What's the motivation? Why are we doing this? So there's all these different levels of things that have to come out. But mindset is also important, but also the mindset that when you go out to do the presentation, you're going to win. You're going to win it. If you think you're not going to win it, you won't win it. So mindset is very important. I hate to use Tiger Woods as an example, but the best person to practice a 3-foot putt. He practices 3-foot putt all the time. He didn't really need to, but that's what won the game for him. So whether it's practicing your closing and how to close on a deal, but you've got to practice these things to take that prospect and get it into a lead and be successful. There's a lot to this whole thing, and I know we're just kind of skimming the surface here.
Well, and we will go more in depth in a later episode, but yeah, for sure. I think there's a gentleman by the name of Eric Thomas, and some of you, if you're looking at him, looking up in social media, E.T., the hip hop preacher, he does a lot of motivational, works with a lot of companies, and he was talking, there's one about set a standard. And I love that phrase, set the standard. So when I look at prospecting, set the standard. And he was talking about, in his video on YouTube, he was talking about Steph Curry, and he said, making shots in practice doesn't matter anymore. Like he practiced and practiced to the point he goes, I now need to do it in real life, like when it counts. But he had to start off with the practicing.
Yeah.
And that's key. And I think one of the other things you want to look at is when you're prospecting, rather than going out and selling, is educating. And I think that's something
Knowledge
we
is
do
power.
as a brokerage
Yes.
really well, is that when we put stuff out to our agents, we're constantly educating them. From Conrad Zerini, our broker owner, who's, every Friday puts out a video talking about here's the most, looked at neighborhood or house on our website. He's educating. We're educating agents on here's what you do. So you got to take that to the clients when we're prospecting, is educating them
Right.
so that they have that knowledge and want to work with you.
They're the best clients.
Right.
When they're educated and they can walk into the house and go, this is a good deal. I understand why this is a good deal. This is a good price. Education is key. So the educated client is the best one. So all of these things, what we're talking about here, I think is just a matter of continually to give and give and give
Yep.
to the clients, to the prospects. And then, as I say, being open to receive. You ask, so give and give, ask for the business, and then open to receive the business. Your business will double and triple. I did a little expansion formula, which I thought was
Okay,
kind of
let's-
interesting.
let's hear this.
I'm not going to hold it up, but so in year one, you start out with 100 people on a database, which I know a lot of you go, I have 3,000 people. Do you know 3,000 people really well? But say 100, if you did 10 deals that year and you do a 1.5 multiplier, that's 15 transactions, and that increases your database by 15 people. And you take that over the 6 years, and I'm happy to send this to anybody that if they wanted to see
Sure.
what it looks like. But by the end of year 6, 210 people are now past clients and 415 are in your database. And that's a lot of people in a database. That really is a lot, because you're going to know them so well. You'll know what book to buy them for Christmas. You'll know what wine they want to drink. You'll know what flowers they like. You'll know so much about them. And that's what this is all about.
I'm laughing right now inside because I remember you talked about this and I didn't realize you were pulling it out here. I totally forgot about it.
That's okay.
And in my head, I was about to ask you, what's a good number for a database? Because like
It's not 3,000,
I know.
folks.
5,000, 7,000.
No.
You can't work that many
No,
people.
you
Please.
can't. You can't know that many people. So if you've got a client you're prospecting, and this is a long time ago, but I had these clients. I had a garage sale outside of one of my many houses, and this is back in the day when there was Cabbage Patch dolls, and
Yep.
it was out there, and I had it on the stand. And these clients, people started to talk to me, and I found out they needed a Cabbage Patch doll. They really wanted one for one of their grandchildren. I worked with those people for 2 years before I found them a house. They got the Cabbage Patch doll, though, from me for free. I gave it to them as a gift. My pleasure to do so. But it takes a long time. But if you find the need and you work with them, and then you're open to ask for business, and they
Yep.
will share you with their friends and family. So then they're prospecting for you, and then keep adding more people to your pipeline.
Yep.
You'll have a very, very lucrative business. I guarantee you that these numbers, doing 60 transactions a year, is more than one person would want to handle on their own. At this point, you've got an administrator, you've got a marketing person,
Yep.
and now you might be looking for a buyer agent as well. And it's all because of doing these things that we're talking about today in your prospecting.
Yeah, and I was going to say, numbers, it's amazing the number of people that do say like 5,000, they've done, some events and then they just don't follow up. And so I want to go back and just say again, it's not about, as much as it is a numbers game, do not get us wrong,
it's
it is a
numbers.
numbers game, but it's not just about having more names and a number of names in a database, having 5,000 names, because if you do nothing with it, it's worthless. Okay, so I say to everybody, like typically 200 to 500, somewhere in there is a sweet spot for most agents. You can work with those people. It's amazing. I used to do this presentation and you can look this up. It's called Dunbar's number, sociologist, and he looked at how many relationships we can manage. And at the very core was like 5 core people. And these are the people we share everything with. They have the utmost trust in us. These are the people that they are going to have conversations with us and let us know they're thinking of selling their home before they put the sign in. Typically, it's everyone else. They find out once the sign goes in the lawn. So, there's those people we talk to on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly. There's those people, once every few months. There's those people once a year. There's those people only on Facebook. And I always joke, I say there's those people then we run into. Maybe it's someone we went to school with, whatever, or we were friends for a while and we, just, again, paths diverged. And, oh my God, we shouldn't wait so long to get together again. We should make sure, we should book something, whatever. And then you walk away without booking anything. And the next time you see them is the next time you bump in. And so that's where it is a bit of a numbers game, is that if you have too many, we can't keep in touch. But when we have a manageable number, it is about, the other thing is also building a system that allows me to keep in touch. But, going back to the whole premise of this is about prospecting. So I'm looking to find ways that I can connect. I want to make sure that it's a good fit. And I think this is the other important piece to it is my sales training was always, I did Sandler sales training, and I would go into appointments saying, at the end of this session, I'm going to ask you one simple question. Lynn, if at the end I'm going to ask you, do you see a fit between the two of us moving forward and being able to work together? And all I'm looking for is a yes or no answer. And you get the chance and I get a chance. We both get to say yes or no. And that always shakes the other person up. You get to choose? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because it's important to make sure that there is a good fit. Because otherwise you find somebody that you're constantly butting heads. It's all negative. They're an energy drain. I call them energy vampires. And so it is about having that good fit, correct?
I call them Ds. Ds.
Ds?
Ds, to be deleted.
Okay.
But
I
you're
like
right.
that.
Yeah. So I think we're
Yeah.
pretty good on that topic.
Yeah, so,
What do you think?
yeah, I think it's prospecting. Any last words? Any quick recap?
Consistency, follow up, find the people that resonate with you the most, and try to spend a couple of hours a day looking for those people and adding value to their life.
Yep. And for me, it's, adding on to that is just look for the conversations. Look for the conversations, build the relationships, set appointments. And it could just be a coffee appointment. It could be a, just whatever. It's coming into their home to do a home evaluation, whatever it is. It's just having a conversation. And don't be afraid that if it's been too long, just, hey, I apologize. I'm sorry. I didn't keep up. And, the funny, I always say, we're in Canada, so us Canadians are known to be very polite and so nice that most people will apologize back to you. But yeah, so get out there, have multiple streams, look for multiple ways to generate that business, but don't get caught up just focusing on marketing and social media. That is not prospecting. That's marketing, letting your name be out there. Prospecting is about having conversations. So if you like this podcast, please join, follow us, subscribe to our channel. We love to have people, send in your comments. We want to get some great feedback, but please join us for future episodes here on the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn Hoffmann and Eric Johnson. Thanks, everybody.